So on the Bitcoin side, the argument is you start with money. That's the most important thing. If you get that right, everything else will happen. Yes, sure, you have to build these dev tooling and L2s and infrastructure and so on. But the focus is you have to get the money part right first. On the Ethereum side, the argument is if you build a thriving ecosystem of applications and developers and people start using ETH will eventually become money, right? So the people that I respect on the Ethereum side, they would argue that look at all the NFT trading volume. That's what ETH is being used as money already. Fair. And then they will be like, look at all of the capital that's deployed in smart contracts, and look at like what capital is being used, what is being used as money. It's Ethereum. Fair. And I think the argument on over here is if you get the money part right, bringing a technology like an NFT marketplace to money is actually trivial. And I think Ordinals showed that. When as soon as NFT marketplace was available for $1 trillion of money, right, people quickly started trading it. And I think the NFT trading volumes on Bitcoin very quickly reached the levels of Ethereum. Right. So that's like a one example we've seen. We haven't seen that in DeFi yet because Bitcoin L2s, like even stacks like Nakamoto is not live, SBTC is not live. So we don't have a place where people can deploy BTC as capital in DeFi. And I think once they're able to do that, my argument is that people are holding Bitcoin as money already. It's winning in the real world. They aren't holding ETH as money. They're holding it more as either a bet on Ethereum, the technology, or actually for paying gas fees, right? I hold ETH right now for mostly paying gas fees for stable coins, right? Like that's the use case. And I've held Ethereum in the past as a bet on the technology. I was part of the original ICO. I think it was like 30 cents or something. But I no longer do because I think if I want to bet on a technology, I would rather bet on Solana right now because it is at an earlier stage. It is sort of like, has more room to grow for that particular category compared to Ethereum. But I hold a lot of Bitcoin because I hold it for a very different reason. I'm not betting on Bitcoin as a technology. I'm actually holding my savings in an asset class. And I just don't view ETH that way, right? For me to view Ethereum that way, Ethereum would need to look very, very different.
But isn't holding Bitcoin, for like its properties as an asset class and so on, I think that's different from holding Bitcoin as money. Like you hold, I don't know, like I don't see, I think your argument is super interesting. Like Bitcoin is money first and then all the applications will follow. Ethereum is doing it the other way around. I think so. I think that's right. But to me, Bitcoin hasn't achieved that either. Like hasn't achieved the status of actually money. I think people who hold Bitcoin are still holding it as a bet on the technology or like the asset, like as an investment.
Very interesting point. Let me dig deeper into it. Right. So let's say my argument is that how I hold Bitcoin, and this is true. I hold it as a savings account. Right. I do my savings in Bitcoin. I've been doing it for 10 years now. And when I'm doing savings in Bitcoin, your savings account, I'm not actually looking at any metrics, any metrics for, hey, what's the transaction volume on Bitcoin? How many developers are coming in? Is the network growing or not growing? Those things are irrelevant to me, right? Like it doesn't matter because it's like when you keep dollars in your savings account, you're not actually measuring anything, right? It's just money.
But are you making payments with Bitcoin?
If I have to, right? If I have to, I liquidate some of my holdings. But what I care about is, are my BTC holdings in BTC going up over time or not? That's the rule for savings. Hey, are my savings growing or are they not growing? The network stats are irrelevant to me. When people want to invest in ETH, they're actually looking at how many developers are building on Ethereum, how many applications are there, what's the usage number, what's the gas fees, right? Because they're looking at it as more like, I'm sorry to say, but like a tech stock, right? Like Ethereum as technology is like a tech stock, and they want to see how is the technology performing, especially relative to Solana, to Avalanche, to everything else. Bitcoin actually has no competition in my mind. Like there's nothing out there where it's just money, it's just savings, and I'm actually not. So it's irrelevant to me how many transactions were there on the Bitcoin network.
But I think that's just to you specifically, right? I think, like I don't know, like I think most people holding Bitcoin will hold it like similar to a tech stock as well. Like if you ask any of like the ETF holders,
I would disagree. At least the large holders of Bitcoin that I know, they explicitly do not hold it as a tech stock, and they explicitly, the reason why they put Ethereum in a different category is because they consider that a tech stock and they don't consider Bitcoin as a tech stock. I think there's a really good paper by this guy John Feffner that came out in 2017, and a lot of the large holders of Bitcoin that I know, they actually follow that school of thought. So I would highly recommend people to look at that. I know that an average person, they might confuse the two assets. I can totally see your point there, that for an average person, it's like, hey, numbers go up, numbers go down. They are two different things. I might allocate here or there, but I'm talking about very large, very sophisticated people who clearly differentiate the two assets, and there's like very, very little confusion there.
Sure. I don't know. I think that might be true for like very large ETH holders as well, that they see ETH as like their savings, and they view their ETH stock as like number of ETH they're holding.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good point, right? So I think those people are probably the same people who realized that ETH will need to win as money against Bitcoin, and they were part of the Ethereum is ultrasound money movement and so on. So then the argument would be, I would just take that hey, let's take the ultrasound money movement in Ethereum and compare that to the sound money of Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin just dwarfs it, right? The amount of people who actually understand Bitcoin as sound money versus, I think the ETH as ultrasound money even has skeptics and critics within Ethereum, right? It's not a very large movement. It's not something that's like gaining traction.